All right, we're ready to begin. Welcome to the Appropriations Committee. My name is Rob Clements. I'm from Elmwood and represent Legislative District 2, which is Cass County and Eastern Lancaster. I serve as chair of this committee. We'll start off by having the members do self-introduction, starting with my far right.
Steve Erdman, District 47.
Lauren Lippincott, District 34.
Tony Vargas, District 7.
Anna Wishart, District 27.
McDonnell, LD5, South Omaha.
Myron Dorn, District 30.
Assisting the committee today is Corey Beerbaum, our committee clerk. To my left is our fiscal analyst today, Scott Danigold. And our page today is Ella Schmidt from Lincoln, a criminal justice and political science major. If you're planning on testifying today, please fill out a green testifier sheet located on the side of the room and hand it to the page when you come up to testify. If you'll not be testifying but want to go on record as having a position on a bill being heard today, there are yellow sign-in sheets on the side of the room where you may leave your name and other pertinent information. These sign-in sheets will become exhibits in the permanent record after today's hearing. To better facilitate today's hearing, I ask that you abide by the following procedures. Please silence your cell phones. Move to the front chairs to testify when your bill or agency is up. Now, in this room, that's probably not possible. When hearing bills, the order of testimony will be introducer, proponents, opponents, neutral, and closing. When we hear testimony regarding agencies, we will first hear from the representative of the agency. Then we will hear testimony from anyone who wishes to speak on the agency's budget request. When you come to testify, please spell your first and last name for the record before you testify. Be concise. We request that you limit your testimony to 5 minutes or less. Written material may be distributed to the committee members as exhibits only while testimony is being offered. Hand them to the page for distribution when you come up to testify. If you have written testimony but do not have 12 copies, please raise your hand now so the page can make copies for you. With that, we will begin today's hearing with LB 1077, Senator McDonnell. Welcome.
Thank you, Chairman Clements, members of the Appropriations Committee. My name is Mike McDonnell, McKemcdonnell. I represent Legislative District 5, South Omaha. LB 1077 would add $2 million to the Department of Labor for grants for facilities expansion for programs in workforce training and career readiness. The purpose of this program is statewide. We cannot solve our workforce preparedness problem unless we are united as a state to solve it. LB 1077 would divide 3 grants evenly among the congressional districts. Also, I don't think government can tackle this problem alone. That is why I require a 1-to-1 match of private funding for any grant funds. Business and industry have to demonstrate their commitment to workforce development, and that is why the state would be the last dollar in. I had a chance to visit a successful welding center at Westside High School in Omaha and thought we could replicate this model to get more facilities and organizations on board to have an infrastructure to prepare the next generation for workforce. Having a chance to go through Westside's facility, looking at their fundraising and how industry, labor, and the private sector stepped up, and the impact they're having on the students over there that don't plan on going to college but are looking for a career path, and the need we have in the community right now and throughout our state. Don't be too proud to steal a good idea. It's working. Now we had a trades camp separate from Westside, and I mentioned this in a hearing yesterday. I got to see a letter from a grandmother that her granddaughter came home and had a chance to weld for the first time. And she said she had never seen her granddaughter that excited about doing anything in her life. That possibly could be her path. So the idea of we need the people in the trades, but we also need to make sure that we're giving these students a chance to try something they've never done before, and also based on the idea of the need and then the opportunity, giving them some hope for the future and a goal outside of going to college. So the dollar amount, the idea of us being last dollar in, evenly throughout the 3 congressional districts, based on we know the need is statewide. I'm here to answer your questions.
Are there any questions, Senator Vargas?
Thank you very much. Senator McDonnell, can you elaborate a little bit on this? I support workforce development and the trades, but given the language, you know, we've had some other funds that will go to workforce development. We've done that in the past. I mean, are you planning to bring an amendment language that would delineate who actually qualify, like what does and doesn't qualify under workforce development and career readiness? Like, can a community college apply for doing expansion? Is this a high school? Can it be a public or private entity? Like, or you're just keeping it very, very open-ended for a reason? So I just wanted to see if you had any follow-up on that.
So looking at Program 31 through Department of Labor Agency 23, the idea of it at that high school level, that's the experience that I saw this summer that was being successful. But that doesn't mean it can't be at a community college. The idea of it is getting more of the opportunity out there. And as we know more in the throughout the state, we have more people that are currently in high school getting credits at community colleges while they're still in high school. So having that kind of partnership, which I know goes on in Omaha area with the Omaha with Randy Schmazel through Metro Community College, it's more of trying to say, hey, here, let's get that facility, let's get those people the opportunity, let's get that private dollar either from business or labor movement and match that dollar and give these people an opportunity to get this kind of training, this kind of exposure to it, and develop the workforce for the future.
Okay.
Senator Dorn?
Is there going to be I call it a limit on how much it can be to any entity, or haven't you had that thought?
What we discussed was the idea of evenly the dollars throughout the 3 congressional districts,
Yes.
but not knowing if there would be 2, 3 different one. The interest, we don't know yet. Hopefully it's to the point where there's so much interest that in the future, if this shows success like they have at Westside and the private sector is stepping up with that dollar match, then someone comes back and says, geez, this is really working. We need to do it more, or we have more interest. But I don't know what the interest would be.
Senator Armendariz?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for bringing the bill. I as well did visit Westside this fall, I believe, and I'm 100% in support with expanding the trades in high school. I really want to focus on high school because I think we miss a lot of kids like that woman's granddaughter who would have never had possibly exposure to something that really lit her up. And I think there are a lot of kids like that, and we're not giving them a lot of opportunities to explore that while we have that captive audience in K through 12. So I am very supportive of expanding this in high school, also to fill our job needs here in Nebraska as well. And I love that they've raised millions on their own there at Westside. The only thing I told them when I left is I think we have a lot of money laying around, and you being in appropriations, do you think, like I told them, we can find money we've already appropriated to direct toward this program, maybe from a program that isn't being fully utilized or isn't working as well as this might? And that's what I shared with them. What are your thoughts on that?
We were having that discussion before we got started today, and that's definitely a possibility. And back to the idea of where the facility is, if it's in a community college or if it's in a high school, the idea that having high school students be able to have that opportunity, either they're going, for example, Westside, of course, they're right in the building. It's very convenient. And I was in the same lab you were, the welding lab. But also if it was for me, possibly in another part of the state where I had to leave my high school and go over to the community college where I'm a junior, but I'm still getting that kind of opportunity. But the dollars, yes, this is the first step of the process of looking at where we are in the Department of Labor with Agency 23 and Program 31, how that's going to work. I'm open to any suggestions.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Senator Erdman?
Thank you, Senator Clements. Senator McDonnell, what kind of certification do they come out of this high school program with?
Well, they are with the idea of when I say a certification and being part of the labor movement and going and saying, you know, you're an apprentice after 4 years and you've done this and it's with the Department of Labor. With the high school level, are they giving them, is there a graduation? Are they certified? Sure. To what level? This would be not to the level of being an apprentice to that and being a journeyman, but it sure would be they would be certain. It's like any other class. You have to pass the class. So they are taking it. They are being tested. They are being taught and tested at the end. So they are getting a grade in the class.
Senator Armendariz.
Thank you again. One caveat to the conversation I had with them, and I've been stressing to a lot of people in this conversation, is that I believe that this is a great opportunity for high schoolers to get high-paying jobs once they get these skills in high school. So I don't intend this to necessarily be a precursor to going on to more. They might get certification in system certification, and I expect that to be able to be done in high school, so that we have high schoolers getting out and being able to support themselves, a future family, without being, I guess, beholden to future education unless they decide to expand that on their own. I want them to get high-paying jobs once they get out.
Other questions? I had one question. Do the matching funds have to come from each congressional district? What if somebody in one congressional district says, I'm going to fund the match everywhere?
Oh, if there was someone that generous that said, I'd like to, there's a dollar in all 3 congressional districts, I'm going to match that dollar. Yeah, I don't think that's a problem at all. The idea was to try to make sure that we were pursuing it equally amongst the 3 congressional districts. But if someone would be that generous, that'd be wonderful.
All right. Just wanted to clarify that. Very good. Seeing no other questions.
I will be here to close.
All right. Do we have proponents?
Good afternoon, Chairman Clements and Appropriations Committee members. My name is Terry Hanna, TerryHanna, and I'm here today in support of LB 1077. And I'd like to thank Senator McDonnell for introducing this bill. I serve as the president of the Westside Community Schools Foundation, and the Westside Foundation is the fundraising arm of Westside Community Schools. My role is to support Westside Community Schools by providing funds through private support to enhance student and teacher experiences, facility improvements, student scholarships, and career explorations. The Westside Community Foundation has embarked on a fundraising effort to support the students and staff at Westside High School, with the end goal of supporting Nebraska's workforce. In 2018, the Westside Foundation led an effort to expand the welding program from 1,200 square feet to 2,500 square feet to make the lab safer and provide more real-world equipment for our students, and most importantly, grow the enrollment in our program. That effort has proven successful with 45 supporters toward the project and increasing our welding classes enrollment in 3 years from 145 students to more than 300 students per year. Through our partnership with Metro Community College, our students have the opportunity to take advanced welding classes and become certified upon graduation and enter the workforce immediately. A few weeks ago, I gave a tour to some community members, and we went to the Welding and Fabrication Center, and there's about 25 students there, performing different welds. And they all stopped and looked to the group, and one gentleman asked, why are you taking this class? And about a handful said, I want to be an engineer. I thought this would be a great experience. A few others said, I want to go into construction. I want to be an electrician. Two students said, I'm interested in steel art. But there's about 10 students that rose their hand and said, I'm not sure. I was told I'm good with my hands and I'm good with numbers, and I want to take this class and see where it goes. And I think that's why we're here today. It is our hope to replicate the welding expansion into other career areas at the high school. This campaign will feature a college and career readiness center that focuses on career exploration and post-high school education paths for students. Westside's goal has always been to do everything we can to prepare our high school seniors to be career ready upon graduation. For many of our kids, this does not necessarily mean a traditional college. It can mean going into the workforce immediately. Our Career Readiness Center will have dedicated space for Metro Community College and Avenue Scholars, and their representatives to assist in navigating our students to the best career path for them. This center will also have a technology-rich innovation lab space for students and staff to expand student knowledge and experience. In most instances, employment in the technology space, a traditional four-year degree is not necessary, and our students can be proficient to enter the technology workforce immediately. This innovation will include, but not be limited to, virtual reality, artificial intelligence, and hands-on learning. Last, this project will also feature an emphasis on sports medicine, athletic training, and emergency management. This focus will enhance our current relationship with local health systems to prepare our students to go into the health sciences field. LB 1077 would assist us and many other similar organizations to have the facilities for immediate workforce development. We want to do our part in stemming Nebraska's brain drain and fill vacant Nebraska jobs with our graduates. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Other questions from the committee? Senator Armendariz?
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Nice to see you. Can you tell me when those young people are done with, say, the welding portion, does Westside then help place them in job openings that are available across the state?
Yes, and one thing that with this campaign that we did with welding and fabrication, we actually created an advisory committee with a lot of industry experts to kind of help guide students and ask and answer questions. And every student that wants to go into welding, they have a job. I mean, if it's into a construction company, a steel company, we're going to make sure we have connections. And I think with Westside, and I think a lot of high schools, at least around the Omaha area, they're very big on building relationships with corporate Omaha. And I think the more we can expand it statewide, the better, because I think at the end of the day, that's why we're here. We want the entire state to succeed.
Just follow up.
Mhm.
Yes, the traditional welding jobs, but can you also help the two that want to go into steel arts?
Oh,
You help
absolutely.
place them in
Absolutely. You know, and that's
a
where
career
we,
path.
yes, and that's why we reach out to the experts in that industry. I mean, there's artists, you know, that are part of Connecco, and, you know, if there's an interest, we will find a connection with them or for them. And I think that's, you know, we all have great relationships in what we do. And I think the biggest advice that we can provide, an opportunity we can provide for students, is connecting them. Because, I mean, if someone wants to get into what I do, I'm more than happy to talk to them about all the pros and, you know, and some of the cons too. I mean, everyone's got to know both sides.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We all know that the connections and the exposure for young people is really certainly key to their success
Yeah.
as adults.
And
Thank
not
you.
just social media.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Are there additional proponents?
Standing room only today.
Welcome.
Thank you. All right. Good afternoon, Chairman Clements and distinguished members of the Appropriations Committee. My name is Courtney Wittstruck. That's Courtney Wittstruck. I'm the Executive Director of the Nebraska Community College Association and a registered lobbyist. I am testifying today on behalf of the NCCA's 5 member colleges in support of LB 1077. And I know that you have plenty of folks behind me, and it was said so well by Senator McDonnell and others before me. I'll make this very short and sweet, but I'll be available for questions, obviously. So although we weren't involved in the creation of this bill, we support this effort to increase the pipeline of skilled labor in Nebraska. And as you all know, community colleges, which are located in every corner of the state, play a key role in creating the skilled workforce that Nebraska so desperately needs. So to continue to provide skilled workers, our colleges rely significantly on private funds and philanthropic funds. So this bill would really help our colleges across the state get some of their critical projects across the finish line. Like I said, I'll be short and sweet. So thank you very much. And I'm happy to answer any questions that weren't answered before me.
Other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thanks for coming.
Thank you,
for
folks.
your
Appreciate it.
testimony. Are there other proponents for LB 1077? Seeing none, are there anyone here in opposition of LB 1077? Seeing none, anyone here in the neutral capacity? Seeing none, that concludes the hearing for LB 1077. Well, would you like to close?
Just here to answer your questions, and if not, if you don't have any questions, we know the importance of it, we know the need throughout our state. So I'm here to answer any questions.
Any questions? Seeing none. Now that concludes the hearing for LB 1077. Except that we do have position comments for the hearing record. We have one proponent, no opponents, none in the neutral position. That concludes LB 1077. We'll move to agency hearings. Agency 11, Attorney General. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Chairman Clements, members of the Appropriations Committee. My name is Mike Hilgers, Mikehilgers, Nebraska's Attorney General, here to discuss elements of our deficit request. So I'll emphasize a few points, give you a little more detail, and then happy to answer any questions that you might have. One of the major pieces of our request is for $1.5 million in litigation expenses. Modern litigation, and in particular the type of litigation that our agency engages in, it can be very expensive. Experts, data hosting, processing. I'm not talking about attorney's fees. None of this would go towards outside counsel. Can run in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars per case. We have some existing investigations that we're engaging in that the budget for which is largely encompassed in our request. Part of this, though, I want to flag is that we have a little bit of an issue in the sense that if we don't ask for some additional funding now, then if we get to June or July or August and we have a new case that pops up, and on any given day, we might find another way that a company or some bad actor is harming Nebraskans. If we don't have some budgetary authority, we don't have the general fund budget to be able to front, $200,000, $300,000, or $400,000 on a case, let alone $1 million or $1.5 million. So the first piece of the request is for litigation expenses for ongoing and anticipated litigation over the next budget year. A second piece is the deficit request for $750,000 for additional personnel. That is primarily, although not entirely, for our consumer protection team. I want to give you a little sense of what our consumer protection team is doing for Nebraskans. We may have the smallest, I'm not exactly sure, but we may have the smallest consumer team in the country, but they do incredible work. So to give you some sense of the fights and the things that they do for Nebraskans, last year we had almost 5,000 calls to our consumer affairs response team. Those are from consumers all around the state of Nebraska of all ages who have been scammed, defrauded, have some issue with a bad actor locally or nationally. We act on a lot of the leads that we get. Our consumer team works nationally on really big cases. You may have seen the Google case, a big antitrust case that was recently in court. We led on that. We recently, with 45 other state attorneys general, filed suit against Meta about a month ago for the harm that they're wreaking on little kids around the country. We also just yesterday actually settled a suit with Hilton and a number of other hotels who were for drip pricing. So basically, these hotels were not telling consumers the full price of their rooms, and then they would show up, or they get these hotel fees or mandatory fees or these other things, and we needed transparency in pricing. So not only did they pay Nebraska $400,000, but they agreed to change their procedures for how they provide pricing to customers. Those are some of the national fights, not the only ones, but some of the national fights we're engaged in. We're also very heavily engaged on local Nebraska issues. So for those of you in Lincoln, Center Wishart, the Redway issue with the airport has been a major issue. If you read the news, there were a lot of customer refunds that people did not get back. Our office got engaged and we're able to help get almost all of those customers their money back for people who put money down for flights, and then the airport or the airline, went under and they weren't refunding money. So that's one example. We have filed actions against other local bad actors. There was recently in the news someone who was defrauding a bunch of individuals of, in some cases, of their life savings to build pools in the greater Omaha area. We filed suit against those individuals. We've had ticket scammers. Just last week, we spun up our first online enforcement group. By the way, our new head of consumer protection, we recruited from California. Her name's Bibi Sternat. She's amazing. She has a lot of enforcement experience. She spun up an online protection group just last week. And in the last week, we were able to take down over half a dozen deceptive, dishonest sites on either on Facebook or websites that were defrauding Nebraska customers. So we have a great team, but we only have 3 lawyers on our consumer team. And for us to be able to take on these kinds, and we have 2 investigators, 3 lawyers, and 1 legal assistant. So to be able to take on these kinds of fights, we are not overmatched, but we are a little undersized. And for the types of things that we see that we can do for Nebraskans, we're asking for some additional funds. It's out of the consumer protection, our settlement cash fund, and so this fund is builds up from the fees that we recover, the expenses or costs that we recover from these defendants. And we have received, on behalf of customers, well over $1 million, but we've received millions of dollars on behalf of the efforts that this team has done. So not to say that if you put $1 in, you get $2 out, but if history is any guide, investments in the consumer fund or consumer protection team does reap benefits both for Nebraskans, but also for this fund itself. A couple other things to point out in the request. One is there's $200,000, a little over $200,000 for the human trafficking technology. So as you know, we have a significant effort in Nebraska in our office to fight human trafficking. One of the things that we know we really need and we have been using lately is it's a very sophisticated software program to help us uncover bad actors on the dark web and on social media and elsewhere to help us prosecute these human trafficking crimes. We would like to enter into a license agreement with HTI, the Human Trafficking Institute, who provides that software. So that's a couple $100,000 from our cash fund as well. The last thing I would reference is, I know I wasn't here yesterday, but yesterday the governor in his proposed budget has $15 million total for property tax relief from our fund. $10 million in this fiscal year, 5 in the next. We support that. We are not a user fee or based fund. All we would ask is that this fund have enough to be able to, over the next few years, under various scenarios, recession or otherwise, be able to continue to fund our consumer group. So we have a really good consumer team. That consumer team is funded by this cash fund. And so in our assessment, based on ongoing cases, potential settlements, current fund, we modeled it out. We think that if the legislature decides with the governor to spend that money towards property tax relief, we still have remaining funds to be able to do all the work that we have. So I'll stop there. I'm happy to answer any questions or unpack anything that I've said.
Senator Dorn.
Okay. How we understand that, are you requesting additional funds or are you requesting spending authority inside that fund? Or what?
It's a great question. Both.
Some of these you get, I call it, you get the fund, you get the settlement in, so you have that fund increases, or explain that one.
Yeah, that's a good question. So in general, the way that it's worked with the settlement cash fund is that if we ever want to spend money from it, we will come to the legislature and get approval. In this case, for the legal expenses, we would like approval of up to $1.5 million for legal expenses.
Additional.
Yes, additional. So this is not approval of current funds. That's what we realized midway through the year, Senator Dorn, is we had these investigations, these cases, and we couldn't prosecute them unless we had the funding to cover some of the costs. And then on the 750, that's additional funding and PSL authority to hire some additional folks.
Senator Wishart.
Thank you for being here. So just to clarify, the $200,000 for human trafficking database, that would be coming out of the state settlement cash fund to the state patrol cash fund.
Correct.
So just want to make sure that is not a different one than what the state patrol had requested.
We've spoken to the state patrol. I think we're on the same page in terms of where it should go.
Okay.
We have talked, I don't know if this might go slightly beyond the scope of the question, Senator Wishart, but I think we are going to, because we run the task force, and so the people who have access to this software is not just the state patroller office. It includes LPD, OPD, statewide sheriffs or agencies, that we would be the point person for the software, but that the state patrol would be there from their cash fund. The dollars would come from that fund.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Attorney General.
Thank you, Senator Clements. Good to see everybody. Thank
We
you.
welcome testifiers, either proponent, opponent, or neutral. If anyone would care to testify on the Attorney General's budget, please come forward.
I work with Bob pretty well on, he helped me, I'll have to work with the new guy on getting this one kind of prepared. Good afternoon, Chairman Clements and members of the Appropriations Committee. My name is Josephine Litwinowitz. Legal first name is Vincent, but it's Josephine last name is Litwinowicz. And so I approve I think it's kind of, this budget is pretty good, but I'd like to divert some money from the office, Attorney General's office, to, thank you. I'd like to have some money, set aside from the funding for the Attorney General's office to the money to find a reasonable accessibility. I'll explain why I'm doing this. From the Attorney General's office to find means of reasonable accommodation for disabled and elderly people observing the legislature. It was admitted, after watching the video, my senator, Richard, agreed that there wasn't reasonable accommodation. And I was there with the speaker one time, the current one, and he acknowledged the same thing. And now it appears that that apparently it's already reasonable accommodation as it is, but I can easily, I defy anyone to go with me, and I can indicate easily that it's not. And so I wanted to come from the Attorney General's office because when I was trying to get this done, a talk, Speaker Hilders at the time, he discriminated against me. He targeted me for who I am. I can prove that. And I'd love the chance to do it. And so what happened then is he basically caused disabled people. The discrimination is against disabled people. I should have had somebody else, I guess, try this, like what you call a normal person. But I firmly believe that, it's kind of funny, some of the things, anyway, anybody wants to know about it. So I'm really frustrated because the current speaker, when I went to talk to him about it to continue, I was in the office and I was talking, I had been going in there kind of, really trying to get it done. And so all of a sudden, because I said something that I was never told to calm down so I was talking with the staff, and then one person said, well, we told you, I forget what it was now. And I said, that's not what I'm talking about. And immediately a red coat came in, and a cop, a police officer, it said I should leave. Nobody ever told me at the time even that I was to be allowed to calm down. It's just that I was told the same answer that I was being told all along. And so what happened was, I'm kind of street smart, and I didn't think about it at the time, but I said, man, they were already there. Either the speaker could have come out of the side door or somebody set it up, because they were there right then the moment I kind of raised my voice, it was like, that's not what I'm talking about. And so, because I've heard it, it didn't even make sense, just trying to blow me off. So I tried to get a video. I tried to request a video. I did it. Anyway, I sent in the request, and I had to tell us, Capitol policeman, Ken, he's a great guy, but I had to tell him why, I was doing this. And lo and behold, because, you only have 14 days. I did it the first day. They have 14 days to get back. And then they said, oh, why didn't you do something? They didn't call me or send an email. And so they didn't even notify me, but it all of a sudden disappeared. And that's something, and I can guarantee you that if there was none of the, set up there, they would have let me have a video of the hallway. And it's like when, during COVID, the governor and he was meeting with the health people. And this was during the time, it was going pretty good. And I was passing just by just to go to my senator's office. I look in the door and nobody's wearing a mask, right? And so I go down to Senator Wishart's office, where it was located before, and I come back and I'm looking. And so I requested that video for room 1326, because there's one right up there across from the other office. And that was a security issue. So I'm going to build them up, and then one day I'll spend that in a committee room. I'm frustrated because I've been working on this for 2 years, and that's all I got to say.
All right. All right. Are there any questions from the committee?
I got it.
Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Are there additional?
It really feels bad to have that. You got to know it really feels bad.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any other testifiers regarding the Attorney General's budget today? Proponents, or neutral? Seeing none, that concludes Agency 11. We will move to Agency 14, Public Service Commission.
I'll
Welcome.
wait for the page to get that around everybody, I guess. You want it? Okay. All right, good afternoon, Chairman Clements and members of the Appropriations Committee. For the record, I'm Commissioner Dan Watermeyer, spelled Watermeier. I'm here with the Nebraska Public Service Commission, representing District 1. I would like to thank the committee for the opportunity to speak to you today, and next I'd like to discuss 3 specific items for your consideration. Program 16 is the commissioner's expense. For fiscal year 23-24, we are asking for $18,887 general fund increase. Fiscal year 24-25, the same amount, $18,887. This program funds the travel and commuting expenses for commissioners to attend commission meetings, hearings, workshops, national conferences, and regulatory meetings. The cost of administrating this program has increased for various reasons, including the evidence of 3 new commissioners beginning in the calendar year 2023. New commissioners are required to acclimate themselves and duties to responsibilities for the commission, requiring substantial travel and training, including the need to attend national regulatory conferences and other meetings. In addition, commuting expenses for all commissioners have increased significantly, not only due to the distance traveled, but also due to more active participation and engagement compared to previous members. Overall, travel costs for airfare, lodging, meals, and related expenses have experienced inflationary increases, and the current appropriation is not sufficient to manage the cost of the program. We have reevaluated the projected shortfall in this program based on the actual cost to date and scheduled proceedings and conferences. We now project a budget shortfall in the program of amount $18,887. Without deficit funding, commissioners will not be able to reimburse for their expenses once the appropriation is exhausted in May of 2024. The second request is in Program 54, Enforcement of Standards for Common Carriers. For fiscal year 23-24, we're asking for $50,149 in general fund increases, with PSL is $5,833. And fiscal year 24-25 of $127,613 general fund increase, with PSL is $73,500. Our mid-biennium deficit requests included general fund appropriations that would allow the commission to hire a track inspector for the Railroad Division of the Transportation Department in order to comply with State Statute 75-401, which requires the commission to enforce the standards of railroad safety. Appropriations for this track inspector position was removed by the legislature during the 2011 legislative session. Since that time, the commission has requested to have that appropriation reinstated or have the section of statute related to track inspection removed. The governor's recommendation did fund this requested appropriation, but did not fully provide the PSL which we will require to fund the position both in 23-24 and 24-25. The track inspector is responsible for inspection of railroad tracks maintained by all freight rail cars carriers in Nebraska to ensure compliance with Federal Railroad Administration, or the FRA, safety standards and mitigate railroad-related accidents. The commission, along with 30 other states, works in partnership with the FRA under the Joint Federal and State Railroad Safety Program to conduct motive power and employment and equipment safety inspections as authorized under statute 75-401. With over 3,000 miles of freight rail running through the state, Nebraska's freight rail tonnage ranks third in the nation. That much rail traffic poses a risk to public safety in the event of train derailments. FRA freight rail safety statistics show that Nebraska has experienced 437 train derailments since 2014, 89 of which occurred on a mainline track. A derailment in a city or a town increases the potential for injury and damage, especially in the event that the derailment involves a train carrying hazardous materials. The track inspection program would fill a valuable role in monitoring the state's level of rail traffic and visually inspecting track for possible defects. The previous state track program inspected approximately 5,000 units, meaning switches, record inspections, and miles of track per year. An alternative to partially fund the rail program was proposed by the commission in 2020, and in the 2021 legislative session, Senator Stinner introduced LB 140 that sought to create a railroad cash safety fund by annually transferring $125,000 from the Grade Crossing Protection Fund to the PSCF. However, the bill did not advance out of the committee. On Program 687, the Nebraska Universal Service Fund, I just want to reiterate the commission's strong opposition to the transfers proposed to the NUSF included in LB 1413. I will not repeat the substantive testimony I gave yesterday, but I do want to address a couple of points that came up after my testimony. First, the figure provided on the handout represented the balance as of 12/31 of 2023. With the activity over the last month, including recent monthly payments and some large projects reimbursements, that balance has gone down. Chair Clements also questioned yesterday regarding the growth of the balance over the last few years. The primary reason is that we have mentioned before, these projects to build out new infrastructure are only paid upon a reimbursement basis. That means the funds are allocated to projects, but not paid out until the commission receives invoices showing work has been completed. I'd like to emphasize that the NUSF projects are multi-year projects, which depend on seasonal construction schedules, material availability, so there has been some buildup in the projects as well as COVID causing some of those concerns. That ends my testimony on the deficit request, and I try to answer any questions if I can.
Senator Armendariz.
Thank you. Thank you for being here today. When we go back to the rail safety and the tracks, so you mentioned the number of derailments since 2013. Do you also have the numbers of derailments per tonnage going across the tracks prior to 2011 when that position was
Well,
defunded?
I think the reason we started at that date was we had an inspector before that, or it was at least
Correct.
funded, not funded at that point in time. So we can get that number for you.
Okay, yeah, so prior to the defunding, how many
Yes.
derailments per tonnage going across the rail?
Well, I'll have to see the metrics and how they base it off of, but
I just
we'll
want
get you a
apples
number.
to
Sure,
apples, right?
sure. You bet. You can do that.
Other questions? I had a question. I think you mentioned that the PSL increase wasn't enough to cover what you're needing.
I think the governor had added about 37,000, if I remember right, and we really need 73,500. The first year is going to be 5,500 because we'll get that person hired in that first year. It'll probably be towards the end of the first fiscal and then into the second year of the biennium.
The governor's budget book says that they're approving a PSL increase of 40,000.
Okay, it was
And your figure was
73.5, I think.
5,500 in the first year?
Yes, and I think 73,500 the second year.
Okay.
We have no excessive PSL in the system at all for that.
And let's see, the track inspector, that's state law, or is it a federal requirement?
No, it's a state law that was implemented in the early 2010 or 11. And then if I remember right, I could get you the history on all that as well. I had gone over that extensive with the governor this fall and this winter, but I'd be glad to sit down with each of you individually and go over that.
I was just generally wondering if we passed that law because we had to.
No, we did not have to. No, many states do not have their own rail inspectors. And keep in mind, every railroad has their own inspector as well. I think the BN would have 14 or 15 and the UP is the same.
All right. Any other questions? Senator Armendariz?
Just a clarifying, we currently have somebody, if I read correct, doing inspections, just not at the level that we'd like.
Nobody at the state. We have a state inspector for the railroads, locomotives, and the cars, which is different than the track inspector.
Okay.
So we have one inspector now. We're authorized for two. We're only funded for one.
Okay.
So we're really asking to be funded up to the second, to cover the second one.
All right. Seeing no more questions, thank
All
you,
right.
Commissioner.
Thank you, senators.
Is there anyone here who would like to testify regarding Public Service Commission? Seeing none, that concludes Agency 14. We now open the hearing for Agency 41, the State Real Estate Commission. Is there a representative here to testify? Welcome.
Thank you, Chairperson Clements, members of the Appropriations Committee. For the record, my name is Greg Levin, Greglemon. We're a small agency, all cash funded. We had a small request. I'm not going to take a lot of your time today. I just wanted to thank the committee for approving our request for a $10,000 increase in our PSL. I have been the director of the Nebraska Real Estate Commission for a little over 14 years, and the biggest challenge I have faced in that time has been the last few years recruiting and retention, and that additional PSL gives us some tools to hopefully recruit and retain just a little bit better. And it was, we didn't know exactly what that would be, and I know lots of times the committee doesn't like to do things on speculation, but I appreciate you guys reviewing that and approving it. And if you have any questions about that request or about the commission, I would be glad to try to answer those for you.
Other questions? So the request was $10,000 of PSL?
Yes, PSL only.
Is that it? All right, I see that was in the governor's recommendation.
So this is just a warm thank you.
All right, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Is there anyone that would like to testify on the Real Estate Commission's budget? Seeing none, that concludes Agency 41. Next agency is Agency 54, Nebraska State Historical Society. Welcome.
Thank you. I have so many pieces of paper. Good afternoon. Thank you, Chairman Clements and members of the committee. My name is Jill Dahlberg, Jilldolberg. I'm the Interim Director of History Nebraska. Excuse me. I'd like to introduce two of our board members who've come today, Jamesina Moore and Ben Gray. Thank you for your support. First, I really want to thank you for your approval of our request for skeletal remains funding. Our state archaeology office has been active in leading the search for the cemetery of the Genoa Indian Industrial School, creating atypical costs and activity for this program. We are grateful for your support, which allows us to carry out this important statutory responsibility. The work that History Nebraska does is important. We keep the state's official collections of archival records, photographs, and 3D objects, hundreds of thousands of items. We make these resources available to Nebraskans of all ages at our museums and historic sites and online, where they can also be accessed by people around the world. We've recently shared some of Nebraska's treasures with state senators, including the territorial legislature's gavel, the pen Beth Streeter Aldrich used to edit her manuscripts, and Governor Thayer's ceremonial sword. Nebraska's long history offers connections to many different stories, from the first inhabitant to later exploration, migration on the Oregon Trail, the brave pioneers who settled and built our communities, to Nebraska innovators who produced technological advances like vice grip locking pliers and Balin buildings. We are excited about the prospect of reopening the gift shop in the state capitol. Oh, sorry, I saw a gesture. History Nebraska is eager for the opportunity to serve the public by offering them access to some Nebraska-themed products. The Capitol Store did well enough in the past to more or less cover its cost. Until it reaches a level of financial stability and can be self-supporting, the general funds would be required to help us deal with the startup costs. History Nebraska operates the Ford Conservation Center in Omaha. It's funded by a combination of earned revenue, general funds, and several funds housed with the Nebraska State Historical Society Foundation. The foundation has informed us that the endowment that provides the salaries and benefits for 3 conservation technicians is no longer available. To prevent layoffs, general funds are needed to replace the cash fund appropriation. And technology is changing the work that we do. The digital archivist is needed to meet the statutory requirements of our government archives. We knew this would be a challenge, but we were amazed to discover that Governor Ricketts' files amounted to a terabyte. That's 1,000 gigabytes. I had to look it up, of information. A digital archivist's special expertise is required to manage digital collections and make them available to researchers. And we're at a disadvantage without one. We request PSL and funding for a geographic information system specialist, another bit of technology that we're embracing, who uses digital maps to plot cultural resources and can map geographic trends. Making maps available on our website will allow citizens to do their own research based on location. Having a dedicated position for operating this very specialized software is critical for helping us provide better information for Nebraskans. We also included the request for our demolition project at Neely that was scheduled for fiscal year 22-23. Due to delays with the city of Neely, the project pushed into this biennium. The $200,000 cost has strained our ability to fund our current operations at our historic sites a bit. The work that History Nebraska does impacts the entire state, but budget cuts have threatened our ability to perform our work. We must ensure adequate funding for a new director to successfully lead us in our mission to collect, preserve, and open to all the history that we share. Your support will help us continue this work in the future. Thank you. I would be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Are there questions for the committee? Senator Erdman?
Thank you, Senator Clements. Thanks for coming. Let's talk about the gift shop a minute. You said that you want to recover your cost. It was here before, right?
It was here before.
And
And the space is still available to us. The Capital Commission has invited us to return. When we closed, it was for a combination of things. COVID happened, the construction in the building happened, and we got moved into a place where nobody could find us. So we moved all of that merchandise back to our museum store, and a lot of it's been sold. So we would need to invest in new merchandise.
so what kind of losses did you sustain when you were at a good location?
Well, it's always, it's interesting that we're not supposed to really make a profit. We're supposed to cover our expenses, right? And so we're often just a couple of $1,000s off, sometimes a little bit more. I have some figures if you.
Can you get copies of those?
Absolutely is our page here. I've written on it, so you'll get my handwritten notes too.
All right. So while she's doing that, you talked about you lost the endowment from the Gerald Ford Fund. What happened there?
It got overspent. It was a fixed amount of money, and we submitted requisitions for reimbursement, and they were all paid until they told us that it was low.
Is that a fund that's available in the future?
They hope to build it back up, but so at the moment they plan to give us $15,000 a year from it, but they want to spend some time building it back up to about $1 million, which they estimate will take between 6 and 10 years.
So you were getting $233,000, is that correct?
I believe that's right. Yes.
So if they contribute $15,000, you're never going to make back up what they usually give you, right?
Right. It's true. It's a difficult thing.
Are you able to speak to the lights at Court and Jailhouse Road?
If you'd like me to, certainly.
Yes. Mr. Berg has been trying to do that for several years.
Mm-hmm.
How's that coming? Are they getting them placed in place, or what's the status of that?
At our April meeting, the board agreed to let him install them, asked for
let me back up. Is it okay if I give some context?
That's great.
The Historical Society owns Courthouse Rock and Jailhouse Rock in Morrill County. Jack Berg is the president or chair
Past mayor, he's on the tourism board.
of the tourism board. That's where I was headed. And he was interested in having them lit up at night. There's a parking lot and a road to it, but not a whole lot of development there. And he would like to make it more of a tourism site where, there are more amenities. We worked with him to get the parking lot expanded. But our concern about the lights was that there are archaeological remains all around those buttes. Is that the right term? These rock formations that are pretty unique for Nebraska. We don't know of any other pre-Apache sites in the state. And so we were concerned about trenching through those archaeological sites and potentially damaging information. So conversation took a long time, admittedly. But at our April board meeting, it was decided after much discussion that if we could bore through instead of trenching, which would make a bigger impact on the earth, that he could have his project. And I think as far as I know, he is fundraising.
So I take a little exception to the work with him to fix the parking lot and the road.
Well, meaning we were aware of it.
Yeah, that's it, because he had checked with Director Jones to do that. And Director Jones said he needed to do a $30,000 study to see if they could do that. And then it was gonna be another $30,000. And so Jack just took it upon himself to hire somebody and he got it done for $13,000. So the historical society had nothing to do with that. Okay, the other issue that I find very difficult is over at Chimney Rock, you have land over there that you own between the rock and the museum. And you allowed earth movers to move dirt on that land. And that's the most recognized monument on the Oregon Trail. And there's far more artifacts at Chimney Rock than there ever was at Jailhouse Rock. And I find it difficult to understand why you won't let him trench in a place where there's less artifacts, when in fact at Chimney Rock, you let him use an 8-foot wide earth mover. There's a little difficult to understand that.
May I explain?
Yeah.
The land between our visitor center and and Chimney Rock itself is owned by the Nebraska State Historical Society Foundation. They approached our archaeology team about surveying from the ground level. They didn't do any earth moving, but to see if there were archaeology sites that should be avoided. The recommendation was that as long as you don't move very much earth, you shouldn't have a problem. I don't think that the plans the scope of the plans were understood by our archaeology department at the time. So yes, they absolutely did move a lot of earth. The archaeologist, however, didn't really think that there was much left there that he was able to locate just from surface level testing.
And I have asked in the past for the archaeological study.
Oh, I don't recall you asking for that, but I'd be happy to send it to you.
Yeah, that'd be important.
Let me find out how to get that.
So it was
For,
peculiar.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, for courthouse and jailhouse or for
Jail and
the
courthouse.
Chimney Rock?
Okay,
Okay.
that's the one. Because I'm having a difficult time figuring out how you can move dirt with an 8-foot wide earth mover and not destroy arrowheads or whatever, and a 4-inch trench is gonna cause a lot of problems. Thank you for the information.
Absolutely.
Other questions from anyone else? Senator Armendariz?
Thank you. Thanks for being here. On the gift shop, we did talk a little bit about just some novel ideas on that. It's over $300,000 over 2 years, right?
Mhm.
And our understanding was it never quite broke even before.
There were like 2 years where it did, and maybe most of them it didn't.
So do we
So
have the
it's-
option to do like what we did in the cafeteria and have an outside vendor come in and do that gift shop, somebody that sells Nebraska merchandise, and maybe be an outside vendor that mans that, and then there's no cost to us as a state, maybe even charge them a small rental, very small,
As
if
far
there's
as I
no
know.
profit being made there, but it gives all the constituents coming to the state capitol something to buy and leave with. I
Mhm.
know I ran into people from all over the world last year, and it
Absolutely.
would be a nice to have, but I think there's ways to do it without costing the state.
Sure.
As far as I know, I think that is something that the Capital Commission works on. And so that's a great question for them. They just approached us about coming back, and so we put together some numbers.
Thank you.
Other questions?
One more.
Senator Erdman?
It appears you lost about $250,000 in 11 years. Does that sound right?
I'm going to peek at my math person. That's apparently, yes.
That's pretty significant losses.
I guess, yes.
Thank you.
I had one question. You mentioned the Historical Society Foundation endowment is no longer available. In this biennium, how much funding are you receiving from the Historical Foundation?
The other one, the new one or the old one?
No, the traditional one.
Can you help me with that answer as well?
Are you receiving programming funds from the Historical Society Foundation?
It has been greatly reduced. I think it's maybe $18,000 over the last couple of quarters. We have a few invoices that are being considered.
18,000 so far in the last couple of quarters, is that what you think?
For this fiscal year so far, yes, since July.
Right.
We don't have it with us, but we can report back to you if you would like to know.
So they didn't terminate all of their support, but the
No,
Ford Foundation, the Ford Center, is not Ford Foundation, the Ford Center. That's the one that are you receiving any funds for that site?
there are a couple of different endowments for that site. One is for those technicians. One is for a paintings conservator. We've actually had a vacancy in that position for about 1.5 years now. It's difficult to entice somebody with that specialty away from the coasts, we have found. So we're working on that. And then there's one that has more to do with the building and taking care of it. So.
And then the other foundation, History Nebraska Foundation, is it active and providing any support?
Well, we have the outcome of all of the, I don't want to just say drama, but that's the word that comes to my mind. Everything that's been in the news is that the Nebraska History Foundation has signed an agreement with the AG's office to repay those state funds to the state over a period of 5 years. And so we are getting payments of $4,718.55 or something like that every month. We don't currently have a staff member though. And so there isn't much current fundraising going on.
Very good. Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you very much.
Is anyone else here to testify on the Nebraska State Historical Society budget? Welcome.
Thank you. Chairman Clements, members of the committee, my name is Ben Gray. For the record, my address is 6946 North 54th Street, Omaha, Nebraska, 68152. I'm currently on the executive committee of History Nebraska, and I'm here in support of the funding proposal that has been requested by our executive director and has been approved by our board of directors. I think it's important for us to continue to keep up to date with the new technology that continues to come out that makes the job a little bit easier, but it also makes it a little bit more technical. And we do need people that have the skill sets that are needed in order to continue to keep up with our archives, continue to keep up with all of the other efforts that we continue to do with History Nebraska. I think it's important also that we continue to look even further, because one of the concerns that I have or have had is that there needs to be a little bit more focus on the eastern part of the city and the eastern part of the state. But I do think that History Nebraska is doing a really great job as far as I can see. I've been on the board for a year. I understand that there are certain issues that still need to be addressed, but I also understand that there are committees that are working to address some of the past circumstances that have not been good, so to speak. And so for me, I think it's important for us not only to support this effort, but continue to work collectively together to solve what problems or what issues may have existed in the past so that we can get to where we need to be as a state in terms of looking at and continuing to support the historical needs of this organization, and as well as keeping everything as fresh as we can keep it, for the public. So I'm in support of continuing the support that for the budget that has been requested. I'm hoping that you all will take a look at that seriously. And again, I'm hoping that, as I came on the board, I recognized that there were issues that needed to be addressed between two entities. I understand the committee is working. There's a committee that has been formed that is working through those areas. But I don't think that has a lot to do with what we're talking about here today in terms of the individuals that need to be hired to support and continue to grow our archives and all of the other things that History Nebraska does. Thank you. I would answer any questions that you all might have.
Other questions from the committee? Would you please spell your name?
Oh, yes. Ben, B-E-N, Gray, G-R, like the color, G-R-A-Y.
Thank you. Senator Erdman?
Thank you, Senator Clements. Thanks for being here. So
Sure.
you alluded to the issues that came up with, I assume you're speaking about Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Okay. So you weren't a board member when all that
No.
happened, is that correct? So others that are serving there now were, would you agree?
Some were, yeah, some were, some weren't.
So what is the reason, how that happened, if those people are supposed to be watching over the operation of the foundation or the historical society? Where did we fall short on our oversight?
I'm not sure that we did fall short on our oversight. I still think that there's some issues that still need to be addressed. Some of those things I'm not aware of at this point, but I do think that in terms of addressing what may have happened in the past, I think that reasonable people can get together and work out a workable solution. Okay. Any other questions?
Seeing none, thank you for coming.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there additional testifiers regarding the Nebraska State Historical Society budget? Seeing none, that concludes Agency 54. And we will now open a hearing for Agency 58, the Board of Engineers and Architects. And I received a communication from the Board of Engineers and Architects that they agree with the governor's recommendation. They sent me a letter and said that they did not intend to come and testify unless I requested it. I told them that was not necessary as long as they were just making the statement that they approved of the governor's recommendation. And Eric is telling me that the governor did not approve the request, but the committee did approve the request. And they've been informed of that, right?
Right.
Yeah. So that would be probably why it was not necessary for them to come, because their request has been approved. Is there anyone that wanted to testify regarding the Board of Engineers and Architects? Seeing none, that concludes Agency 58. And the next item up would be my bill. Vice Chair Wishart, please take over.
I think the chair said that closes the agency hearings, and now we're gonna open up the hearing for LB 1226. Welcome.
Thank you, Vice Chair Wishart and esteemed Appropriations Committee members. LB 1226 is a shell bill, which I introduced to provide a contingency in the event that the Appropriations Committee needs an additional bill to carry out budget recommendations. I have no need for it at this time, but there are times when the committee has to take action on something that we weren't aware of when bill introduction ended. And so there are no changes or proposals to the budget in this bill, but it's available to be used if we need it in the future. And I would take any questions at this time.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none.
Thank you, and I waive closing.
Well, that's, anyone in proponents to LB 1226? Anyone in opposition? Anyone in the neutral? Okay, seeing none, the chair has waived closing, so that closes the hearing unless we have any items. That closes the hearing for LB 1226. And that closes our hearings for the day.
I believe so. You should- Oh, you're just here in case.
This is my bill.
I wanted to comment, I did send out an email
Nice
that
weather out
had
there.
Speaker Arch had some committee protocol recommendations. Speaker, I sent you an email, the chairman's meeting yesterday. Speaker Arch had some helpful things on how committees should be run and how you should also